Hi friends, I'm Sam from DIY Huntress, and for years I've been struggling with a scrapwood hoarding addiction and an addiction to making coasters. And today I'm here to tell you that literally nothing's changed because I'm about to show you how to make yet another set of scrapwood coasters on my channel today. Recently, I was invited to a Maker's Secret Santa where I have to gift one maker in our community something that is handmade. In total hindsight, it would have been much better timing to probably share this with you guys before the holiday season, but I guess it's never too late to start planning for next year. Now, in true DIY Huntress form, there is a ton of scrap wood laying around my workshop, and I also have some leftover resin as well. So today, I guess I'm gonna show you how to make yet another pair of scrap wood and resin coasters on my channel. This is a really great weekend project for all of you weekend warriors out there, and it can definitely be done with limited tools. I'm super excited to make this set of coasters, so let's get started. This year, I was on a really awesome podcast called The Maker's Happy Hour, and the hosts, Craig and Lindsay, decided to do a Secret Santa for makers this year for holiday season, and I was super stoked to be part of it. Now, there were two things that I learned about the recipient of my gift before starting this project, and that was that A, she really likes drinking tea, and B, she really, really likes the color black. And since I'm paring down on a ton of leftover material in my workshop to prep for my shop makeover in 2021, it just made total sense to make some black ocean coasters for the Secret Santa gift. And honestly, I absolutely love making coasters, so I was really excited about this project. Now to get started, I cut a leftover piece of lumber into the size I needed for some pre-made coaster molds that I already had hanging around my workshop. And after cutting them to size, I then sanded them down to the size I needed to fit comfortably in the molds. And as always, friends, if you are looking for a list of the materials that I use for this project, you can find them on my website by clicking on the link below this video. Now at this point, it was time to prep these coasters for a resin pour, and I did this by setting up a small area to pour my resin in that was temperature controlled. And then I clamped each piece of wood along with the coaster mold into place, and this is just to prevent the pieces of wood from floating once I add the resin. I then removed any extra debris from these resin molds using an alcohol prep pad, and then it was time to pour. So because these resin molds are so thin, I decided to use Moss Tabletop Epoxy Resin for this project. And I used this because I am only going to be pouring about 1/4 of an inch, and that is what this resin product recommends. And it is a 1-to-1 ratio, which means it's a super simple mix. It's just 1 part resin, 1 part hardener. You pour them both in a cup, you mix them up super nicely, and then you're able to pour. Now, after mixing the resin pretty thoroughly, I then decided to add my pigment, and I totally messed up here. I really wanted this pigment to be kind of translucent, almost like the pigment that is in some of my other resin projects that I've done. But of course, I added way too much pigment to this resin, and it ended up being super, super solid. There were definitely a couple of things I could have done to have remedied this situation. One being that I could have mixed up a brand new batch of resin. Another being that I could have mixed up like a half batch of resin and then mix that in to make the color a little more translucent. But I ended up just moving forward with this solid color. In my brain at the time, I thought it would work. I thought I'd be able to still see all of the really cool details in those live edge portions of the pieces I was using, but I was wrong. And honestly, it is what it is. You live and you learn. I think next time I ever do a project like this, I want to try to do it with a way more transparent color. But honestly, these ended up turning out pretty cool in the end. And I mean, come on, Sam, you get what you get and you don't get upset. You just work with what you got, right? But anyway, after pouring the resin, I then used a torch to just get rid of some of those bubbles and then left these coasters to dry overnight. I then brought these coaster molds back into my workshop where I demolded the actual coasters from the mold and then sanded everything down super flat. Now, in other resin and wood videos that I've done on my channel, I talk a lot about how important the sanding process is, but luckily because I am pouring an ocean on top of this pre-existing resin, I was able to get a little more aggressive. So I started with an 80 grit here and then worked my way to 120 grit, just making sure that everything was super flat and that the resin was scuffed up enough to be able to handle another resin pour on top of it. But once the coasters were flat again, I then taped up the bottom of these coasters using some painter's tape, and this is just going to prevent any of the resin that kind of runs off the edges of the coaster during the ocean pour from sticking to the bottom. I then brought those coasters back inside to my little makeshift resin pour area and then began to mix up my different colors for my ocean pour. Now, I've done a couple of oceans since I learned how to do them a few summers ago with some of the most amazing resin ocean artists. I've actually linked them all below this video so you can check them out. But since then, I have figured out which paints and dyes work best for me, and I have linked all of them on my website in case you're interested. But okay, to the ocean pour. So as you can see, I did start with my main color, and I used a black color here. Again, my Secret Santa recipient loves the color black. I think I actually might have mixed a tiny bit of indigo blue in there as well. I honestly don't remember. But anyway, after laying the black color down, I then put a pretty thick layer of clear after that, and then blew that all around with my heat gun before adding in my white resin. Now, if you're looking for more of a breakdown of this process, I did publish a Resin Ocean serving board project on my channel a couple of months ago, and that definitely breaks it down a little further. So if you are new to ocean pours, I definitely suggest checking out that video because it is a much slower and thought out process in that video than it is here. Also, in being totally honest with you guys, there's so many things I wish I had done differently in this project. I actually really wish that these oceans were more translucent and that base color was more translucent, but whatever. They ended up turning out pretty cool in the end. I just wish I had a time machine to go back and try things differently. Okay, but like enough beating myself up here because they really did turn out beautifully. So as you can see, after adding the white, I then applied some heat with a small propane torch, and this just helps that white color kind of develop those really cool looking cells. And then after I was done with that, I added one more line of white to define that wave. Now, I was actually able to complete this pour pretty early in the morning, so after about an 8-hour day, I was then able to take these coasters into my workshop and remove the tape from the bottom of the coasters using a heat gun. I then just very lightly sanded away any of the sharp or the rough edges from the coaster, and I also scuffed up the bottom of the coaster as well before wiping everything down with a damp paper towel. So in previous coaster videos, a lot of you guys have recommended that I use cork on the bottom of the coasters. So for this one, that is exactly what I did. The reason I scuffed up the bottom of the coasters was because I really wanted some cork to stick to the bottom of the coasters. So I had some adhesive cork left over from the guest room makeover that I did for my mom, and I heated up that adhesive just to make it super sticky, placed the coaster on top of it, and then cut away the excess using a razor. I then lightly contoured all of those messy cuts with a sanding block, and then it was time to add some finish. In the past, I've used different finishes for coasters, such as an oil finish or a polyurethane or a spar urethane, but for these I actually decided to try using a beeswax, and it went on really beautifully, and it was also super easy to control around the resin, and I was really happy with it. So as much as there are things that I would have done differently if I were to do this project again, I'm actually really excited about the way that these coasters turned out. I mean, I've done coaster projects on this channel, and I've also done ocean projects on this channel, so it just made total sense to combine the two into one project, right? Even cooler, I was able to make something with my own hands for another maker in this amazing online maker community, and I cannot wait to see what she thinks of them. So even though holiday season is over, I really do hope that you enjoyed this small little scrapwood project on my channel today and that you might consider making them for next holiday season. And if you did enjoy this video, I do hope that you will subscribe to my YouTube channel for more projects in the very near future. 2021 is going to be an awesome year, you guys, and I cannot wait to share all of the things that I have in store. But until then, friends, wishing you all a very happy new year and happy DIYing.